Hi, everyone. Today we're going to be covering understanding and managing work teams. I know last week we dove into the group dynamics. So today we're going to dig a little bit deeper into how to manage those work teams. In this lecture, we're going to look at what makes those teams effective, how they develop over time, how to manage them, and the challenges and benefits of working in diverse and multicultural environments. This topic connects directly to your future career. So every job that you go into in the future hopefully will require you to implement some of these different concepts. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so learning objectives for this chapter. By the time you complete this chapter, you should be able to explain the benefits of working in teams and identify the factors that make teams effective, describe the stages of team development and recognize how teams evolve over time, discuss the key considerations and challenges involved in managing teams successfully, analyze the benefits of conflict in team settings and how it can strengthen performance, and then evaluate how team diversity improves decision making and problem solving, and identify challenges faced by multicultural teams and apply best practices to managing those types of teams effectively. So before we jump in, I just want to highlight how powerful teams can be. Teams are everywhere in today's workplaces. And as Aristotle once said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And this really captures what teamwork is all about. When done well, teams can really accomplish more than individuals working separately on the same project or goal. And so we're going to hopefully connect this to some real life examples. And ultimately, a manager's role is to navigate and guide the dynamics of the team, and the success depends both on managing both the people and the tasks because those groups and those teams have to have goals in order to be successful. They have to be working towards something. So, what is a team? A team is simply people working together cooperatively toward a goal. It's people organized to function cooperatively as a group. What sets teams apart from just a group of people is that shared purpose, the shared commitment, and the accountability. Think about a basketball team. If one player slacks off, the whole team suffers. The same is true in a workplace. When you work on a team project, everyone's effort matters to the outcome. There are five elements that make teams function. Number one is common commitment and purpose. Then you have specific performance goals, complementary skills, commitment to how the work gets done, and mutual accountability. So think about being in a study group where everyone just does their own homework separately. That's not really a team. But when you divide up tasks, maybe you quiz each other or rely on each person to contribute their part, whether you're studying and you quiz each other or you're each completing a specific part of a bigger project. Every person contributes, and that is a team. Teams thrive when there's a common commitment, complementary skills, mutual accountability, all of these. So in the workplace, strong teams can create outcomes that individuals alone cannot achieve. So what makes a team effective? Research by, and I have a hard time saying this name, Katzenbach and Smith, the show that successful teams share several key practices. So we'll go through some of these. First, they have a clear purpose and a sense of urgency. They know why they exist and what they need to achieve. Teams with compelling goals are far more likely to meet performance expectations. So having those goals clear and having that shared direction is key. Second, effective teams set clear goals, establish norms for behavior, and commit to a shared direction. They also spend meaningful time together. They really work on building trust and understanding with each other, and they use feedback and recognition to keep their motivation high. So think of like a construction crew or a retail sales team, that maybe they're working together. There's like a shared blueprint, daily check-ins. Maybe they reward each other for small successes. The team performs better than one without structure. And then on the other hand, maybe you have an ineffective team that might struggle because they don't have clarity. Maybe they don't communicate well, or they fail to communicate, or they avoid conflict and they just kind of, go with the flow because they don't want to create tension. So understanding all these different practices sets the stage for learning how a team will develop over time. So teams don't form or become effective overnight. They go through stages. And as described by Bruce Tuckman's famous model, there's the four stages: forming, storming, norming, performing. In the formal stages that they go through, a manager has to be very aware and familiar with these stages in order to be able to step in as needed. So again, the stages are forming, storming, norming, performing. In the forming stage, everyone is polite, friendly, cautious. It's like think about the first day of class when you're still learning people's names, still learning people's backgrounds, how everyone kind of speaks up. You're slowly getting to know everyone. In the storming stage, that's where the conflicts emerge. Maybe you have a deadline, maybe you're having some disagreements about who's going to do what. Ideas maybe are conflicting. This is the stage where conflicts emerge. It can feel very uncomfortable, but it's a very important piece of the puzzle when it comes to forming a strong group. It's necessary for group and team growth. And that's a very important thing for managers to understand, that conflict is actually a good thing. And then you go through the norming phase, and that's when the team starts to figure things out. They start getting to know each other better, building trust. They're finding that rhythm and setting rules and norms for the group. And then the performing stage is when things start moving more quickly. The team is productive, confident. They work well like a well-oiled machine. And so when the project is done, obviously the team disbands if unless it's a permanent group. But there's this big sense of accomplishment. This process isn't always linear. The teams can move backward if new challenges come up. So it's not always going to be forming, storming, norming, performing. They might go back to storming at some point, but then eventually, because they've been through this process before, the goal is that they've created a sense of, okay, we've been through this, we know how to navigate this conflict or this tension and grow from it. And that's the key. They can move backward, but the important thing is that as new challenges come up, that the group navigates them, works through them, and grows. It could be maybe a new member joining or a sudden change in direction of the team, whatever the case might be. It's important that the team focuses on growth and instead of getting stuck on one of these different stages. And having a manager understand that, the manager can go in and help the team, guide the team if they see or sense that the team is getting stuck in any of these particular stages. You kind of learn when to step in and when to step back and let the team do its thing. But the important thing is that as a manager, you don't let the team get stuck in a place for long periods of time where then it basically becomes a barrier to them achieving their collective goal. So, some really quick practices of successful teams, what makes a team effective. Katzenbach and Smith had something called discipline of teams, and there are several practices that they observed in successful teams. Some of these include selecting members for their skill and skill potential, not for their personality, paying particular attention to the first meetings and actions of meetings, setting some clear ground rules for behavior. And you really want to avoid creating like that toxic environment within a group. So having those positive, clear ground rules is very important. Setting and seizing upon new immediate performance-oriented tasks and goals, challenging the group regularly with fresh acts and information, spending lots of time together to sort of build that trust, exploiting the power of positive feedback, recognition, and reward. And then collaboration is another key concept that was focused on, and a method by which teams can work together very successfully. There were 8 success factors for having strong collaboration skills. The first were signature relationship practices, role models of collaboration among executives, the establishment of a gift culture in which managers mentor employees, training in relationship skills, a sense of community, having ambidextrous leaders who are good at task and people leadership, and then good use of heritage relationships and role clarity and task ambiguity. So, what does it take to manage a team? I have to say that managing a team is a lot trickier than it looks and what it might seem like. Leaders might think their main job is managing a project or task, the deadlines or reports or the deliverables. But in reality, managing the people and the dynamics is even more important than all those different things. Because if you focus on the people and the dynamics of the groups and teams, they are the ones that are ultimately going to be accomplishing the tasks for the organization. So think about a project plan. If team members don't get along or they don't trust each other, how is the project going to be accomplished? Good managers balance both the task and the relationships. They can also deal with paradoxes while encouraging both collaboration and encouraging healthy conflict. Managing individual goals and then also managing like the team goals, the collective goals, and having a focus on that. And that takes balance and practice and experience. But the managers act as a buffer when outside pressures threaten the team, and they advocate for the team with other stakeholders. A great manager isn't just a boss, they're also a coach. Think about the managers that you've had in your life and the ones that seem more like coaches or mentors, mediators, people that have your back. They tend to be the ones that we like. But one of the hardest things that managers have to face is conflict and managing that conflict, managing communication, managing motivation. They have to really spend time nurturing trust, facilitating communication, and creating that balance. Let's talk now about the paradoxes of teams. Managing teams comes with paradoxes, which are seemingly opposite things that you have to balance. For example, teams need to support each other, but they also have to challenge their ideas to avoid groupthink. They need to respect individual goals, but stay focused on the collective success of the team. And they also have to balance setting those boundaries and giving flexibility. It's a juggling act that requires awareness, adaptability, experience, but it's something that managers have to incorporate in their strategies of managing these teams. One of the hardest things for managers to face is conflict when it does come up. So let's look at how conflict actually plays a role in the team's success. When we think of conflict in teams, we typically assume that it's a bad thing, it has like this negative, reputation, something that might derail progress or harm relationships. And part of it is with our own personal experiences. Maybe we have conflict at home or in our personal lives. And it's true that if conflict is handled poorly, it can create distrust, lower morale, and it can slow down a team. But conflict isn't inherently negative. It's just when it's managed, incorrectly that it can be negative. But when it's managed constructively, it can actually be a powerful tool for growth. Productive conflict allows team members to share different perspectives, and that is really important when you have a project that you're working towards because everybody thinks differently. Everybody brings a different perspective to the table. And you want that because it really fosters that creative and, piece, that innovation that you want in a work setting. So you want to allow team members to share different perspectives, and that comes from that productive conflict. It can lead to challenging ideas and thinking more critically about decisions. Teams that engage in healthy debate often end up stronger, more trusting, and more committed to the final outcomes because the conflict forces the team to grow and come out of that conflict as a stronger group, a stronger force, working towards these goals. In the book, they talk about five dysfunctions of a team. Patrick Lencioni emphasizes that avoiding conflict simply buries disagreements and they can resurface later in damaging ways. So, teams that confront issues openly with respect, which is very important, are able to build that stronger cohesion and create better solutions. So, the role of a team leader is very important here because leaders set the tone for how conflict is handled. They want to be able to model that constructive behavior, encourage open discussion, and guide the team towards resolution. There are different techniques that, like mining, which surfaces hidden disagreements, or giving real-time permission to stay engaged in different conversations. Those can make conflict healthier and more productive. On an individual level, constructive responses like perspective taking, proposing solutions, or expressing ideas respectfully push the team forward. And if you have a team member that does something like destructive responses like avoidance or blaming or lashing out, those types of behaviors really hold the team back. So conflict can be very uncomfortable, but it's really important and essential for creativity and effective decision making. Um, if everyone just said, yeah, 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 and nodded their head to the first suggestion, the result may be okay, but it's not exceptional. It's not innovative. It's not creative. Teams that openly discuss options, respectfully challenge each other, and combine ideas typically produce those stronger, more innovative solutions. So conflict is going to happen on every team that you're a part of. The key is to handle it in a positive, constructive way. And when teams do that, they really build that trust, they grow, they encourage creativity, and like I've been saying, they make better decisions. One factor that really influenced decision making on teams is something we've reviewed before. It's diversity. Decision making and problem solving tends to be much more dynamic and successful when performed on diverse teams. And that's a really important thing for you to take away as a manager. The multiple diverse perspectives can enhance both the understanding of the problem at hand and the quality of the solution. Diversity in teams makes the team smarter because of the different perspectives, different assumptions that are challenged. You reduce that groupthink, and the ideas they get richer. And research has shown that diverse teams rely on more data and facts because members anticipate having to explain their viewpoints. So as you talk about different things, you find that these individuals will go and do their homework and come at the team with facts that support what they're saying. So, as an example, you have a diverse product design team that may think of user needs that are different than others because of their experience. So, team diversity is very, very powerful, but it also does come with challenges, especially when you add multicultural differences into the mix. So, let's talk a little bit about what happens when teams cross cultural boundaries. Multicultural teams like we just talked about, they can bring a lot of strengths, but they also face unique challenges. And as a manager, going into your role, understanding these different challenges that can come up will help you know what to do when they do come up and give you the tools that you need to navigate these situations. So, some key differences could include communication style, language fluency, attitudes towards hierarchy, and decision-making norms. And I'll give a couple of examples like um, I was part of a group in business school where I had a classmate that was from India. And when we were coming up with our solutions to different projects that we were working on, different problems we were solving, he would say, whenever I would say, okay, we spent an hour working on this decision or this recommendation, does everyone agree? And everyone would shake their head up and down as indicating a yes. And he would shake his head side to side. And I looked at him like, what do you mean? We just spent an hour talking about this recommendation. What do you mean, no? Because to me, shaking your head side to side means no. But what I later found was that in India, their gestures are backwards. So for us, when we want to say yes, we nod our head up and down, and when we're saying no, we shake our head side to side. In India, no is up and down, and yes is side to side. So when he was shaking his head side to side, and I thought he was saying no, he was actually saying yes. So that's an example of a challenge. And I was kind of like, what? What do you mean? I was annoyed immediately because I'm like, we just talked about this for an hour. What do you mean no? And so that's an example of how those cultural differences can come up. And if you don't, obviously that's a really simple example, but there are more, like maybe someone has a really thick accent and the team doesn't understand. Maybe they get frustrated because they're not understanding what the person is saying. I mean, lots of different things can come up. Or maybe the person, you know, doesn't speak English as a first language. And so they struggle to maybe articulate their messages, or maybe the way that they come about, the way that they come across in the group might not be what we would consider polite, but maybe they think that's perfectly normal in a business setting. So there are a lot of things like that that can come up. So as an example, we could have like a communications director that may seem blunt with their communication, and maybe the team members with limited fluency might feel like, that's a little aggressive. Or maybe there's hierarchical expectations that can clash in some cultures. They prefer, to spend more time thinking, or others just want to move quickly. So lots of different, maybe there's gender hierarchy in different cultures. I mean, there's so many different cultures out there, and we never can control which cultures we work with. And so there's all these different dynamics. So to navigate all these challenges, teams can use several strategies. And so we're going to talk about some of these today. There's adaptation, which is acknowledging differences and finding a way to work with them so you adapt. Structural interventions, reorganizing the team to reduce friction. Managerial interventions are when leaders step in to guide the team, and that is typically considered a last resort method. A member may need to exit the team. A key skill for success in multicultural teams is cultural intelligence. And that is something that I want you to pause for a minute and really take a look at. And that is the ability to understand, adapt to, and work effectively across cultures. And if you haven't really spent a lot of time focusing on this, I really encourage you. There's a ton of books out there on this particular piece, and I really encourage you to spend some time researching it, and making sure that you are culturally intelligent. It can be developed through exposure to other cultures, practicing cross-cultural skills, participating in global projects or diverse teams. It comes with experience and exposure. And so the sooner that you begin that process for yourself, the better, and the better manager you will be in your careers. So while cultural differences can create challenges, they also really do present great opportunities. Teams that develop awareness, adaptability, and cultural intelligence can turn diversity into creativity, stronger collaboration, and better decision making. And so as a manager, having that cultural intelligence will help you navigate these different situations. You'll be able to guide your teams when they do have this cultural conflict, and getting through that and becoming a better team and better employees and better humans all around. And with globalization, there are many teams that are going to be multicultural nowadays. It brings a lot of benefits, fresh perspectives, creativity, but also these challenges that we just talked about. And the managers that have that cultural intelligence, that awareness, will be able to balance those expectations and help them succeed. So, best practices when it comes to this piece are cultural intelligence and adaptability. All right, so wrapping up, we've learned that teams are more than just groups of people, they are engines of collaboration with shared goals and accountability. They develop over time through stages from forming to performing, storming, all of that. Managing teams is more about, it's about understanding people and balancing the paradoxes. And conflict, when handled productively, can really strengthen teams and spark that creativity. Diversity and multiculturalism bring richness to decision making, but they also require awareness and cultural intelligence, both from the managers and the members of the team. And so the bottom line is that teams allow us to achieve things together that we could never do alone. So as you move forward in your careers, remember that teamwork is a skill. And like any skill, you can build it, practice it, and master it. I hope you can carry these lessons into your future workplaces and beyond.